All right, so here's our agenda. I know opening a school during this time adds an extra layer of difficulty, but we're here to help you and support you through the process. So we'll get started now with the presentation. So on today's agenda, we'll be going over an intro into school nutrition programs, program responsibilities, the National School Lunch Program application, and the calendar of deliverables. We're going to have another training session on serving meals. We call it NSLP 102 in June. That training will focus on breakfast, serving meals in the classroom, and everything that goes into serving meals, such as documentation and the meal pattern. So objectives. SFAs will be introduced to school nutrition programs and understand the benefits of participating, understand responsibilities for administering the child nutrition programs, or we call them CNPs, within their operating model, know how to monitor their programs, ensuring they are meeting responsibilities, and understand how to navigate the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, or as we call ourselves, OSSE, tools. Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to do some introductions. So I'll have OSSE staff on the line introduce themselves, and then I want you guys to come off mute and introduce yourselves. We have some people here that are opening a brand new LEA in DC, and then we have some people that are newer to their role, that are maybe newer and already an existing charter school. So feel free to come off mute and share a little bit about your school. So my name's Alex Dobbs, and I am the NSLP compliance manager. This summer, I've been at OSSE for 2.5 years, and then previous to this, I worked in for a vendor that did school food, so I have a extensive background in school food operations. And then I'll kick it to Nigel, who's our communications guru and is sharing our slides with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nigel Henley. I'm the Training and Communication Specialist with the Child Nutrition or School Nutrition Programs team. I am the one that's been emailing you nonstop over the last 2 days. Nice to meet you all. You all will hear from me often now that you are working in schools and interfacing with us and our team. I don't know who to pass it to next, so see Ani there. I'll pass it to Ani.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ani Sweeney, and feel free to come to me with any certification, benefit issuance, and verification questions. And I will pass it to Kimberly.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kimberly Thompson. I'm a program specialist here with the school nutrition's team, and I will pass it off to Liz, who I see that's on the call today too.
Hi, all. Thanks, Kimberly. I'm Liz. I'm one of the nutrition program managers, and just wanted to pop in and say hello. I'm not able to stay for the whole training, but just wanted to share our excitement that you all are joining the programs and let you see my face. So if you have any questions down the line, that you kind of can connect a face with an email address. And I think we got all our OSSE team, right?
Beth is here from OSSE. I'll let Beth introduce herself.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks all. Yeah, I'm also just here for a minute, but I am another program specialist. I work specifically on farm to school and USDA food. So once you've been in the program for a year, we'll be connecting a bit more on the USDA food side. Farm to school, if any questions about local procurement or any other ways that I can be of support, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. All right, so now let's go through who we have on the call. I have Global Citizen listed first. I do not think Global Citizen is here. If I'm wrong, jump in. Okay, I'm going to go to Learn PCS. Do we have anyone from Learn on the line? Okay, what about Failing in Leadership Academy? I see Trina.
We might have some issues with folks unmuting themselves, so let me I'm gonna unmute all and let's see if you all are able to respond then. Cancel, let's see. All right, for some reason, we're not able to unmute. There, I hear somebody. Malika, that looks like you.
All right, well, since we're having, oh, thank you, Claire. I was just going to say, since we're having a little bit of difficulties coming off of mute, feel free to drop in what school you're from into the chat. Let us know what grades you're operating. I know some schools just start off operating 1 grade, the size, any information you want to share about the school, you can just go put it in the chat and then we'll get to know you all that way.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Malika Joseph, and I'm the kitchen manager / chef at IDEA Public Charter. This is my 2nd year there. I've met Alex at a couple of trainings. And this is my first year since first couple of months dealing with the NSLP by myself, because our previous person that used to deal with it is no longer here. So this will be very helpful for me.
Thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the mic seems to be working for me. Okay. Hi, my name is Derek Dean. I am the Director of Operations at Kingsman Academy Public Charter School. I've been with Kingsman for a number of years in a variety of roles. Kind of stepped away for a little bit, but circled back last May to take on the role as new leadership came on board within the school. Background, we are 6th grade through 12. School focusing primarily on a lot of at-risk youth under overage, undercredited, mainly. I've kind of been in the background, working with and seeing, some of the items with, NSLP, seeing emails, and I see a lot of the names here that I've seen on emails. But, as we get, more closely to, where we're pushing to, for reopening on a full-time basis, I will be more proactive and more involved in taking on NSLP, guidelines, along with my food coordinator, who can't be here today because really technically we gave our staff off today. So they reminded me of that. So, but yeah, looking forward to the training. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Awesome, thank you. I see Claire is here working with Learn Charter School, which is one of our new LEAs that's opening in DC this year. All right, we can go on to the next one. Nigel, you are not in presentation mode. If you want to switch.
Okay. I switched off because it's hard for me to see everyone. I want to see faces while we're done our presentation. So I am going to switch back now.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so Division of Health and Wellness Mission. So healthy bodies and minds are the foundation of academic success. Aussie Health and Wellness leverages programming, partnerships, policy, and data to remove health barriers to learning so that people of all ages and backgrounds are prepared to succeed in school and life. So you'll hear us reference back to this mission throughout the presentation. So school meals are essential for student health and learning. School meals alleviate food insecurity and poverty, support good nutrition, improve health outcomes, boost learning, and students who participate in school breakfast programs have improved attendance, behavior, academic performance, and academic achievement, as well as decreased tardiness based on decades of research on the topic. So school nutrition programs are federally assisted meal programs operating in public charter, and nonprofit private schools, as well as residential childcare institutions. These programs provide cash subsidies or grant awards to assist schools with meeting meal costs while providing students nutrition meals and snacks during and after the school day. So programs include the school breakfast program, national school lunch program, fresh fruit and vegetable program, after school snack program, at-risk supper program, and the summer food service program. So the first topic that we're going to cover are So this slide is a reference for everyone since we use a lot of acronyms when referencing various types of child nutrition programs. I feel like I've already used a bunch of them and the presentation just started. So there's two that I want to highlight. The School Food Authority, or what we call the SFA, is the governing body which is responsible for the administration of one or more schools. And it has the legal authority to operate child nutrition programs or be approved to operate child nutrition programs. The Food Service Director are professionals who oversee all aspects of the school nutrition program for the district independently or alongside additional school nutrition professionals. They are directly responsible for the management of the day-to-day operations of school food service in a district. So I'm highlighting the food service director role now since each SFA needs to have someone designated in this role. In larger SFAs, such as DCPS, they have one person that is designated as the food service director. In DC, we typically see various people in this role, such as the business manager or operations manager. Regardless of the structure of your school, it's required, but it's also very important to ensure that you have someone designated in this role. So traditionally during the school year, SFAs would be serving meals under the NSLP, which is the National School Lunch Program, or SBP, School Breakfast Program. However, this year we are encouraging all SFAs to serve meals through the Seamless Summer Option, or SSO, which is the program that I've highlighted in yellow on this slide. At a high level, SSO follows all program regulations as NSLP, but it allows SFAs to provide and claim meals at the free rate and will have a higher reimbursement rate than NSLP this year. So we will be having a separate call specifically addressing SSO and the waivers available in the upcoming school year within the next month or so. But I did want to flag that if this is your first year in operations, it's going to be a little bit different than the traditional NSLP program. And if this is a couple of years into your operation, it's still going to be a little bit different because you'll be serving under SSO. But this is a very positive change and will make implementation, service, and access to the program easier. So determining the school food authority and hiring a food service director. So the school food authority is the governing body which is responsible for the administration of one or more schools and has a legal authority to operate the school meal program. So traditionally, each LEA in DC is their own SFA, but we strongly encourage LEAs to consider SFA options. So you could partner with another SFA on this call and have one or another LEA on this call and be one SFA with multiple sites, or you could become a site under an existing SFA. So for example, Global Citizen Charter School, who's not on this call today, is renting space from Friendship PCS, and Friendship's actually going to take them on as a site. So even though they're opening up a new charter school, they're not going to be their own SFA, and Friendship will be responsible for their meal program. And for the food service director, they're responsible for managing school nutrition programs for all schools under the SFA. So they plan, administer, implement, monitor, and evaluate all aspects of the school nutrition program. There are hiring standards based on enrollment. So in the speaker notes, I've dropped the hiring standards in there. We're also going to give you information of where we keep all of our resources so you can find the hiring standards in there as well. But minimum prior training standards are required. So you need at least 8 hours of food safety training, either not more than 5 years prior to your start date, or if you start and you have not taken food safety training within 5 years, then you have to take it within 30 days of your start date. And then annually, the minimum training required hours for a food service director is 12. So we know in DC, a lot of people wear different hats. While the food service director may not have the title of food service director, so you could be the operations manager, as I mentioned. For our purposes, this role is acting as the food service director. All right, so now we want to hear from you all. Have you, and feel free to drop this in the chat, of course you can come off mute, but have you determined if you'll be your own SFA or if you're going to join up with another LEA? Maybe you haven't thought about it yet, which is totally fine. And then additionally, have you hired a food service director or determined who will play that role? I have a feeling a lot of people on this call are probably playing the role of the food service director. But we'd love to hear from you. And if you aren't sure yet, totally fine. But it's one of the next steps for you to think about in the next couple of weeks. Okay, great. So Learn's going to be its own SFA, and they have designated a food service director. Awesome. And if that person's not on this call, this is being recorded. So if they haven't started yet, when they start, they can go back and watch this. All right, well, I will keep going, but feel free to, oh, great. Okay, iDream PCS will be its own SFA. So they're one of our new SFAs from last year. Great, and this is a perfect example. So we have the operations manager for the school that's also managing the food service program. Awesome. All right, so let's go on to SFA responsibilities. So the school food authority shall be responsible for the administration of the program in schools. So when we say that SFAs are responsible for the overall operation of child nutrition programs, what does that mean? Let's look at some visuals that show the major components included in operating child nutrition programs. So many folks may think that running these programs means providing meals to students, and it does. Providing meals is at the heart of what we do, but it's not only that. Of course, we produce food and serve food, but did you also know that you're responsible for financial management of the programs, for HR and staff training, for planning facility and equipment needs? Running these programs also means operating within federal and state level requirements for the programs. So what you're responsible for will vary depending on the type of contract and service you operate. So in this slide is an example of self-prep. So if you're self-prep, meaning you make all of your meals in-house, you're responsible for everything here. So that includes food production, menu planning, nutrition, etc. And we do have a self-prep on the line, IDEA PCS. So IDEA does everything that's listed on their slide at their school. If you decide to do a vended contract, you'll be responsible for most things with the exception of menu planning and food production. So in this case, a company is preparing and delivering the meals, and then you're responsible for everything else that's in blue on this slide. And lastly, if you decide to do a full service management contract known as FSMC, more of these responsibilities will fall on the management company, such as serving food. However, at the end of the day, the SFA is still responsible for the overall program. This is really important because there's a common misconception that using an FSMC relieves the SFA of their responsibilities, but that's not true. Ultimately, the SFA is responsible for the program. Okay, so I'm going to pause again and let you guys put into the chat. Have you determined which operating model you'll be using? So self-prep, vended, FSMC. Of course, if you haven't yet, that's okay. And are there any challenges you're facing in making this decision? If you're having any challenges and you don't feel comfortable putting in the chat, feel free to reach out to us at the end. All of our contact information is on the last slide here. Are there any new SFAs on the line that are going to be a self-prep by chance? All right, well, if anyone's having any trouble figuring out the difference or they're not sure what they're going to do, feel free to shoot us an email and we can walk you through a little bit more of how the different models of service look. Okay, great. Learn's going to be an FSMC contract. Okay, so why are SFA's responsibilities important? Because healthy bodies and minds are the foundation of academic success. So the meals provided for students through the child nutrition programs provide the substance for healthy bodies and minds. So it's not about the administrative review, it's not about checking the boxes, it's about providing nutritious meals for students so that they can learn in the school day. It's about operating your programs in the way that's right for your school community. It's about making sure your programs are in compliance and financially stable so that you can focus on additional priorities. So I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly, who's going to review the OSSI tools that we have to help run your programs.
Thanks, Alex. So we have created a suite of tools for SFAs to use. Please ensure that you have access or request access to each one of these items listed below. Beyond the tray is the OSSI Nutrition Programs team's monthly newsletter. It is the main tool to use that provides you updates, reminds you of deadlines, and shares information. The link here will allow you to sign up for Beyond the Tray. So let's take a minute to do that now. And then the second tool is Orchard. Orchard is where SFAs will apply for NSLP or any other program such as SSO, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, or CACFP. All of our administrative reviews are done through Orchard as well. Once your SFA has been set up in Orchard, a member of the OSSI team will create an account for you. And everyone has access to the link to Beyond the Tray that Alex dropped in. I see that. Okay. And the third tool is the Google Drive. The Google Drive is a suite of resources which we will jump into in a minute. The link here will request you access if you do not have access already. The fourth tool is the SFA Master Responsibility List. Is a tool we created for SFAs to use. We'll be taking a deeper dive into this tool today. Lastly, the calendar of deliverables is a list of all new due dates for NSLP or SSO, if that's what your SFA plans to run, which we'll go over as well. So let's begin reviewing the tools. This is a snapshot of our Google Drive. It contains a lot of resources. Most questions that come our way can be answered with the resources in here. Please familiarize yourself with the folders and use this as the first place you look if you have a question. Let's click on the Google link now. If you do not have access, you can follow along on my screen. As you see, there are subfolders in the NSLP resource folder for program types like breakfast, lunch, snack, school gardens, or specific program areas like CEP, meal patterns, verification, civil rights, procurement, and local foods. Additionally, make sure to bookmark the Google Drive link and other tools for easy reference. This spreadsheet is a master list of everything that is due. SFAs should use this tool for them to ensure that they are meeting all deadlines and requirements. Each item links to additional information. Not everything is required for each SFA, which is why we recommend you download and edit it for your SFA. You will now have access to the spreadsheet just dropped into the chat. Please use the master responsibility sheet and look around. SFAs can filter to their own needs based on program area, timeline, size of SFA, which means if you're a single site school or you have multiple locations and sites, key staff responsible, and more. For example, schools can reference the spreadsheet for questions related to on-site monitoring and learn which programs require it, which size of SFAs need to conduct it, which monitoring form to use, and where to find additional information and relevant due dates. Now we'll move into procurement. One of the first areas you'll be working on is procurement of food and food services. Nigel included a link to the procurement training, which is on a web-based program called Articulate, in the invite to this training, and hopefully everyone had a chance to look at it and started thinking about procurement or have started it already. Here is the procurement section of the master responsibility spreadsheet. The procurement responsibility list mirrors the master list. SFAs can view specific tasks, key responsible staff, where to find additional information, and key due dates. Now let's move into a brief discussion on procurement. I will ask each SFA to come off mute to respond to the questions, or you can drop a response into the chat. So for the questions, where are you in the solicitation, development and issuance process? What challenges are you facing? And how can OSSI support you in this process? So do we have any schools that want to come off mute and answer the questions, or just want to drop your response into the chat? I know we had another school earlier mentioned that they were going to do a food service management contract, but how about the other schools on the call today? Okay, so it looks like Learn is going to do an RFP ideas self-prep. Do you have any other schools?
Hi, this is Trina McWilliams, and I'm with Hope Community Public Charter School. And we are with our management company, Imagine, which will be ending June 30th. But so we'll be starting with Phelan Leadership Academies, which is PLA. So we'll also be going out for bid.
Great. So that kind of takes us into the next slide. We'll talk about next steps. So we can start there. So as SFAs move through the process, you can refer to the procurement process timeline and checklist for procurement next steps, which can be found in the Google folder as well. We'll drop a link to the document in the chat for reference. For a brief overview, new SFAs will need to go out for bid for a food service contract for the upcoming school year and determine which procurement method best fits your needs, whether it's an invitation for bid, an IFB, or a request for proposal, RFP, or informal. OSSI can help review drafted procurement documents, and SFAs are encouraged to use the OSSI created templates in the Google folder as well. We have saved time for another brief Q&A. Do attendees today have any specific questions on the procurement next steps, or do you want to share where you are in the procurement process again? I'll hand it over to our next presenter, who will touch on student eligibility.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. Okay, so we'll talk about student eligibility for the upcoming school year. So as I mentioned earlier, schools this year can operate SSO option, meaning all students receive free breakfast and free lunch, and the school is not only reimbursed at the free rate, they're going to be reimbursed at a higher rate than they typically would be reimbursed under NSLP. So in the regular school year, if this was not with a waiver next year, students can qualify for free and reduced price meals 2 ways. The school may collect free and reduced meal applications, or more commonly known as farm apps, in which a student will qualify via income, or they could be directly certified. If eligible, schools may elect the community eligibility provision, so that's CEP, and the school in turn would provide meals to students that are free for everybody, and you wouldn't have to track the student's eligibility status. So we have a little bit more info on CEP here. So we have guidance for new schools, CEP eligibility data. I'm going to go into CEP a little bit deeper on the next slide also. Okay, so if you're a school that qualifies for CEP, elections are typically due in June, but this year they've been pushed back because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we are going to be sending out additional information on electing CEP as well early in June. But if you are a new LEA, you're on a little bit different of a timeline than everybody else, since we need your enrollment to elect CEP. So there's a couple things that you need to do. So you would work within the LEA to ensure the Student Information System, or the SIS, is sending data into SLED that includes enrollment data for the new school as soon as possible, but before your school year starts. So once your enrollment's pretty finalized, you make sure it's linked to SLED. Then when you're done, you're going to let your program specialist know. So one of us on the line, who's ever assigned to your school, you would let them know. We'd run your data, and then we're going to tell you, hey, you're eligible for CEP or you're not eligible for CEP. If you're eligible, you would make your CEP election, and then you're going to send it back to us. So we're still going to go through the process, even though regardless of if you're CEP or not CEP, meals will be free under SSO to everybody at the 100% free rate this school year. But we still, USDA is still asking schools to elect CEP. But again, we'll be sending out more information on it in June. And then we also have a memo, it was linked in the last slide, on eligibility for new schools and just how the process works. Okay, so direct certification. So I know I've mentioned a few times that we're going to send out additional info. So we had a call just this morning with USDA and we received updated guidance. So I originally planned to dig into direct certification, dig into farm applications, tell you guys everything you need to know. But we just received a little bit of clarity from USDA. So if you are not CEP eligible, but you are serving meals under SSO, then you don't need to run your direct cert list or collect farm applications this year. So this slide goes into detail on direct certification. What is it? How to run it? The next slide goes into detail on farm applications. So how do you approve a farm application? What do you need to do? The timeline for it and everything like that. These are screenshots from that master responsibility spreadsheet. So if you don't pull up this presentation, you can go to the master responsibility spreadsheet and find all the information there. So I think what I'm going to do is skip over direct certification and skip over farm applications because everybody on this call should be serving SSO. Let's say for whatever reason you decide you're going to serve NSLP, we're probably going to talk to you about it because I don't think it's the best decision for your school. But let's just say you're on NSLP, you're not CEP, you will need to do your direct cert list and you will have to collect farm applications from parents. So those are two big reasons to do SSO this year. All right. Anyone have any questions on student eligibility and CEP specifically?
Hey, Alex, it's Malika, an idea. Just to be clear again, if we're doing SSO, we do not need to fill out the waiver to do CEP. Or is it the other way around?
Yeah, it's the other way around. So if you are doing SSO, we're still gonna have you elect CEP. Luckily, electing CEP is super simple. We send you the information, you take a look, and you tell us what year you want, and that's it. It's a very simple process. Okay. But you still need to elect it because that data is used for other things.
Gotcha.
More importantly, if PEBT comes out next year, CEP, if you're not CEP, your families can still be eligible for PET, but if you are CEP, that's how they're going to know that they're eligible. But it's used for other things, your CEP data, so USDA is still requiring it. So yeah, you'll still have to elect it, even though it's going to have no impact on your claim. You're going to get reimbursed at the 100% free rate.
Okay. And how long is that waiver going to be good for?
Well, it's good for a year, the SSO waiver. There's a huge push across the country for universal free meals, so maybe this is just the start.
Gotcha.
But just 1 year, yeah. So if things go back to normal, as we say, or how they were served 2 years ago, previous to the pandemic, next year at this time, schools will be gearing up to switch back over and serve meals under our NSLP. The meal pattern's the same. There just won't be flexibilities like we're going to have this year to make access and serving meals and all that a little bit easier.
Okay. And another question.
Yeah.
Since SSO, I think, is going to be ending in September, will we have to fill out another waiver to continue it through the following year?
Yep. So there are, I don't know off the top of my head, let's say 6 or 7 waivers that USDA has in place for this upcoming school year.
Gotcha.
So what we're going to do is mid-June, let's say, we're going to host a call just on the waivers. So there's waivers for serving SSO and getting reimbursed at the higher rate. There's a possible meal pattern waiver if you need a meal pattern waiver. So we'll go through all of the waivers and talk about how school will look next year. So as part of the application, you will have to resubmit the waiver request form. And then it will be, but that's going to be uploaded with your application. So whatever waivers your school is choosing to elect, when you submit your application, you're going to upload that and then we can approve your waivers there. It's going to be a simpler form than it was last year, but like along the same lines.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And we haven't planned the waiver call yet, so don't worry if you haven't seen an email. It hasn't been sent yet, but once that's planned, we highly recommend everyone joining because we're really, really going to dig into meal service for next year. Okay. What I have after this is a 5-minute break, but we're flying through this presentation. Last year we had almost 30 minutes worth of questions on eligibility because we didn't have the waivers in place. So we just cut a huge chunk of that out with the update we got from USDA this morning. I'm going to propose, Ani, if you're okay with it, that we just jump into the next session and then we can all get it out of here a little bit early.
That sounds fine with me, as long as everybody else is okay with that. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start us off with a little activity. Okay, so one of the next big tasks that you have is completing the NSLP SSO application. You are brand new to the food service director role. Your principal or LEA leader tasked you with ensuring you submit the NSLP SSO application on time. You have no idea where to start or where this NSLP application is. What is needed to complete the application? When is the application due? And how will you figure out to answer these questions? So feel free to drop your answers into the chat, or you can come off of mute to discuss. So I'll give everybody a minute to think. And a clue is to think back on all of the tools that Kimberly presented to us. Okay, well, the answer is going to be the master responsibility spreadsheet. This is where you're going to find all of the information related to the NSLP SSO application. This is at the very top of the spreadsheet, and it's under the annual requirements. Okay, so Nigel, we're going to move on to tips for completing the NSLP SSO application. Great. Okay, so starting off with the tips. So start working on your application early. Please do not save this until the last minute. School starting is very hectic, and a lot of people have a hard time finding time once school opens. You may need to work with other people within your LEA to help ensure that all items within the application can be answered. So a great reason to start early. So first up is the NSLP application required documents checklist. I recommend using this and checking off each item as you go, as well as crossing off items that are not needed for your SFA. Next, we've created a self-guided resource to help walk you through how to complete the NSLP SSO application. Please make your way through the entire presentation before starting the application, as this will help you better understand the program and the application requirements. SSO is included within the NSLP application. We are strongly encouraging all the SFAs to implement SSO this year. This will be elected within the application. So as soon as you do this, additional tabs within the application will populate. The specific details are outlined in the self-guided presentation just mentioned. So lastly, ask your program specialist if you run into any problems. We are always happy to help answer any questions that may come up along the way. All right, so taking a quick look at the application required documents checklist. Again, this is found off the master responsibility spreadsheet and can also be found within Orchard's library. Once you log into Orchard, you will navigate to the library and then to documents and downloads. Here you're going to find all of the items needed to complete your application. Lots of direct links to the required items are already embedded into this checklist. Public notification. So one area of the application that can be quite tricky is the public notification. This one item gets returned in 90% of all the applications. The non-discrimination statement needs to be posted exactly how it is written here. The paragraph formatting must be the same and the links must be active. Please check all the fonts, line breaks, numbering, and spacing for each line. OSSI has created a public notification guidance document that details all of this information, which can be found within the Orchard Library. There are two requirements for this notification. First, you will be required to provide us a direct link to where you have this posted on your school's website, and you will be required to take a screenshot of the entire statement and upload this copy within the application under Documents. Finally, the District of Columbia Human Rights Act should be added directly below the USDA non-discrimination statement. This exact language is also found within the public notification guidance document as well. All right, so moving on to professional standards. And this is another section that is within the master responsibility spreadsheet. All right, so we touched on this briefly before, but there are higher requirements for the director as well as annual training requirements for all employees with duties related to the food service program. This is whether you are a director, a manager, full-time employee, part-time employee, or simply have a task related to the program. Each employee is encouraged to take varied trainings throughout the year. The only training that must be completed each year by all employees is the civil rights training. This training must be completed prior to working within the food service program. Here we have linked 2 separate self-guided trainings that you may use to meet this requirement. Another professional standards requirement is that SFAs must track trainings for all employees on an annual basis beginning July 1 of each year. USDA has created a template tracker that's available for all of the SFAs to use, and a link is found directly within the master responsibility spreadsheet. This exact tracker is not required, and you may create your own if desired. So a tip. So even if you have a food service management company preparing and serving your meals, you as the SFA are still ultimately responsible for ensuring that all employees meet the professional standards each year. At your leisure, take a look within the professional standards folder and review all of the resources. Reach out to your program specialist with any questions that you might have. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Alex.
All right, thanks, Ani. I just want to comment really quickly on the NSLP application. So what we have linked in this presentation is the documents for last year. They're just going to change slightly as we got more information that now SSO is allowed, and little tweaks to make it more streamlined. Maybe some documents aren't needed this year, so we'll take those off. So if you dive into it now, you're going to see stuff that is from last year. The chunk is going to stay the same. In this email that's going to come out in, let's say, like 2, maybe 3 weeks from now, it's going to be information on the waivers, the open call that we're having, and it's going to be information on the updated NSLP training, as well as the updated list of required documents. And then that will also be updated in Orchard. We'll update it everywhere. They're not ready yet, or we would have linked them here within the training, but you can at least take a look and see. So that email will come out in, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, and it will allow you to start doing the NSLP application. All right, so here is the calendar of deliverables. So if anyone was super paying attention, you'll notice that there's a typo on this screen. If you know what the typo is, then Nigel will fill out your NSLP application for you. Just kidding. But I'm curious to see if anyone can realize what the typo is on the calendar of deliverables. Okay, you had to have been, I'll give you a hint, you had to have really been paying attention to what Ani was saying. Okay, so where's the calendar of deliverables located? It's located in our Google Drive. So a lot of the items stay the same year over year. So the due date for claims are always on the 10th after the month. And then the final submission for claims is always that 60-day deadline. So they're due on the 10th, but after 60 days, you will not get reimbursed for your meals. If you haven't submitted your claim, you get like a one-time exemption every 3 years. But it's just, they're just due on the 10th, and we recommend everyone do it on the 10th or right around there. And then also in the calendar of deliverables, you'll see other things that are due, such as CEP elections. When we send that in, we'll update it. There's some things that are TBD. So we have like grants and different events that we aren't sure if we're going to be able to have this year just because of budgeting from the pandemic and everything. So things that we didn't take anything off. If we're just not sure if it's a go, we put it in as TBD. And then if things are, we find out things are allowed, we'll update it here. Okay, so did anyone find the typo? I'm looking in the chat. I don't see it yet. All right, the typo is that the due date for the NSLP application is July 31st, not July 30th. That's a typo on my end. So this might be a little bit of a shock because for SFAs that have been in this program for a couple of years, typically we have the application due in August, but we've moved it up this year so that way people can be working on their application and not also starting school at the exact same time. And then this will allow for the CEP elections and the waiver request form to all be due at the same time. CEP elections for brand new SFAs will have a different deadline because your enrollment probably won't be set. But other than that, everything's going to be coming in at the same time. Nigel, yep, okay, Nigel doesn't have to fill out any NSLP applications. Okay, so let's review. There's a lot that goes into NSLP, and your food service director is ultimately responsible for the overall program. So you want to start with a plan and ensure that it's monitored. Utilize all the tools that we have gone over here, and then always reach out to your program specialist if you have questions or concerns. We have divvied up program specialists for the new schools. So when we get off of this, each person can introduce themselves. If they're your school, the program specialist can send you an email. And then that's like your first point of contact. Well, your first point should be looking at the Google Drive and the master responsibility spreadsheet, and then come to us if you have any questions or need clarity or can't find something. We can always point you in the right direction. Okay, so your next steps, takeaways from this call, things that you should be working on is you need to determine what type of service you want to use and procure a food service contract. You also need to hire or determine who will be your food service director. The next big lift is going to be the NSLP SSO application. So part of the approval process is a site visit from OSSI to see your school in operation and ensure your SFA is set up for success. So we'll reach out to you to schedule once we get closer to the start of school. The visit may be remote. They were remote last year. I don't know how this school year will look in terms of doing any on-site visits. But basically, we wait until your school gets up and running, and this is just for the new SFAs, or if you're opening a new site, if you're an existing SFA but are opening up a new site. And we'll just go through a checklist with you and make sure you have everything that you need. And this way we catch it now before an AR comes around. And then if anything changes because of COVID-19, we get any information from USDA. As I mentioned earlier, we had a call on USDA, which changed already a couple slides in this presentation. We will send out information. So we have a meal service guide that we update. We're going to have our NSLP training this year. I've talked about the call that's coming in a couple of weeks that are waiver focused. And then we're going to have a couple smaller focused sessions as well this summer that are optional. Of course, if you attend any of the sessions, you get training hours, credits. That's always a good thing. Okay. Before I do, we are way ahead of time. You guys have been super quiet today. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we've gone over?
Hey, Alex, there was a question in the chat, and I just wanted to highlight it for everybody. And the question was if all of the links that were sent through the chat can be sent out, and the answer is yes, and Nigel will be sending out an email with all of the links for everybody.
Thanks, Annie. And everyone should have access. The only thing you won't have access yet to is Orchard. I think we need some financial information that goes to our finance team. We can set you guys up. Your SFA will be set up in Orchard, and then we can set everyone up with an account in Orchard, and then you can jump in and play around in there. If you are an existing SFA but are new to your role and you don't have Orchard access, shoot me an email and I can make a login for you. Okay, when applying for SSO, are applications required for students? No, if you are serving SSO, you will not need to do farm applications and direct certification. There is a caveat that I'm just going to say that I don't know if it will apply to anybody. So if you are not a CEP school and you are not in school 5 days a week, so let's say you are doing a hybrid where kids are remote learning, there's a chance you may need to collect farm applications if PEBT gets extended. So that's very, very nuanced. We haven't talked about PEBT. PEBT is extra money for students that are eligible for free and reduced meals that has been extended now 3 times through the summer. We're anticipating it being extended. But I guess before I talk anymore, are there any schools on this call that are not planning to have 5 days in person and do like a remote where kids are distance learning for 2 or 3 days a week? I know the mayor's really pushing for everyone to come back 5 days, so that's not going to apply. It sounds like since no one on here is saying that they won't be going to school 5 days, that won't apply to you. So therefore you don't have to collect farm applications. Even if you are not CEP, and you would typically need to collect them, you won't need to this year. Is anybody not sold on SSO? Is someone still considering NSLP? Okay, great. And then as Ani mentioned, SSO is just another little section within the NSLP application. So it's just going to add a little bit more to fill out, but it's all housed in the same spot. Okay. So this session really focused on our resources, where to find resources, what do you have to do to get up and running. So the next session is going to focus on meals. So that's meal pattern, serving meals in the classroom. We'll have a huge focus on serving meals in the classroom since we're sure meals are going to be served in the classroom more than they typically are. And then any health and safety things that you need to know on serving meals next year. But I'm interested, are there any topics that you guys want us to add that we didn't cover today or you need more information on? Serving meals also includes like taking accountabilities, how to like check off kids' names. It includes production records. It will include all of that. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. All right. So I said we were gonna end early. We are ending super early. So I hope this gives everyone a lot of time to start working on procurement. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to work on procurement this afternoon. But here's all of our contact information. So Liz was on here at the very beginning, and then you have my contact information, and then the program specialists are Kimberly, Ani, and Lizette. And so for our new SFAs, we'll be reaching out, letting you know who your program specialist is. So that can be the first person you contact. If you're an existing SFA and you're not quite sure who your program specialist is, just let me know and I can tell you. And then I know you met Nigel and you met Beth. And so if you email the wrong person from the Aussie team, it doesn't matter. We all work super close and we'll send the email on to whoever it needs to go to. All right, guys, well, I'll let everyone go. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you in about a month.